Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the 10th meeting of the Joint Select Committee on Local Authorities, Service Commissions and Statutory Authorities, including the THA of the 12th Parliament. Members of the listening and viewing audience are invited to post or send their comments via the Parliament's various social media platforms, Facebook page, ParlView, the Parliament's YouTube channel, and Twitter. I am honored this morning to have the members of the Ministry of the Public Administration, Public Service Commission, Service Commissions Department present at this stage. And I would like at this stage to invite the Ministry of Public Administration to please introduce your members that are present for us in this meeting this morning.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Claudel McKellar, Permanent Secretary, Acting.
Good morning, Candice Mohan, Acting Director, Public Management Consulting Division.
Good morning, Marsha Samaru Calcutt, Senior Public Management Consultant, Acting Public Management Consulting Division of the Ministry of Public Administration.
Thank you and welcome. I would like the members of the Public Service Commissions, could you please introduce yourselves to this meeting?
Morning, my name is Winston Rudder, Chairman of the Public Service Commission.
Morning, my name is Courtney Williams. I'm a Commissioner of the Public Service Commission.
Good morning, I'm Jennifer Sampson Farrell, member of the Commission.
That's it. Okay. At this stage, I would like the members of the Service Commissions Department to please introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Corey Harrison, Acting Director, Personal Administration.
Good morning, Martel Waldron, Acting Deputy Director of Personal Administration, Service Commission Department.
Good morning, Helen Warner, Acting Deputy Director, Personal Administration.
Good morning, Tabitha Ramcharan, Executive Director, ICT Acting.
Thank you all for being here this morning. And at this session of our committee's hearing, we hope to have a public inquiry into the objectives to examine and assess the administrative and operational changes that have been implemented at the Service Commissions Department during the past 3 years. As you know, there was a previous report with recommendations. And two, to evaluate the impact of these administrative and operational changes on the ability of the Service Commissions, with the exception of the JSC, to execute their constitutional responsibilities. 3, to obtain insights into the plans and proposals aimed at further improving the institutional capacity of the Service Commissions Department. And 4, to examine the factors and conditions that are hindering the successful implementation of the organizational transformation measures at the Service Commission Department. So I am chair of this committee. I am an independent senator, Dr. Valmedial Singh, and I'd like members of my committee to please introduce yourselves.
Good morning. I am Jayanti Lakshmidial, member of the committee.
Lisa Morris Julian, member.
Good morning, Khadija Amin, member of the committee.
Good morning to all. Esmond Ford, member of this committee.
Good morning, everyone. Nigel De Freitas, member.
So thank you, members, for being here. And at this stage, I would ask the would like the members of the permanent secretary, actually, Mr. Claudel McKellar, to please give us some brief opening remarks on this hearing that we are going to have today.
Thank you, Chair. The Ministry of Public Administration welcomes and appreciates the opportunity to participate in the committee's follow-up to the 2017 inquiry into the efficiency and effectiveness of the Public Service Commissions, which, among other things, address the institutional strengthening of the Secretariat to the Public Service Commission. Our written submission to the committee highlighted the work undertaken by the ministry during the period under review to support modernization of the Service Commission's departments, human resource management structure, skills, and facilities. We also included work related to ICT, which was undertaken by iGovTT, while that entity was under the purview of the Ministry of Public Administration. Given that there have been leadership changes at all of the agencies identified in the 7th report of the JSC, this intervention is welcome, as it serves to return us all to the objectives of the initial inquiry and allows us to take stock of what has actually transpired and provide direction as to the way forward. The Ministry of Public Administration recognizes the importance of modernizing the public services human resource management architecture to the overall modernization of the public service and the contribution that this will have towards improving the service's effectiveness and overall quality of service delivery. The ministry also recognizes, too, that the Service Commission's department plays a significant role within the HR architecture and therefore supports every effort to strengthen its institutional capacity and effectiveness. Chair, in closing, I wish to assure you that my team and I undertake to support the committee's inquiry by responding as best as we can to your questions and providing subsequently any additional information that may be required. We also welcome any recommendations that this committee may proffer towards improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the Public Service Commission and the Service Commission's department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKellar. And again, we would definitely be seeking to give that recommendations, and part of the discussions would be, among the three entities in our body to see what we can probably carry forward to get any sort of improvements or further improvements. At this stage, I would like Mr. Winston Rudder, Chairman of the Public Service Commission, to please introduce.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Joint Select Committee, for the invitation to participate in this virtual public hearing. My sincere apologies for any inconvenience we may have caused in having this particular meeting rescheduled. The Public Service Commission is pleased to assist in the inquiry into the institutional strengthening initiatives of the Service Commission's department. Indeed, as will become apparent in my brief remarks, there are very clear linkages between these initiatives, their impact on the operations of the SCD, and the constitutional mandate of the PSC. As a result, the PSC has taken very close interest in the progress made in this regard and has designed arrangements to support the process. The functions of the PSC are well documented and do not exist in a vacuum. Their relevance relates to their intended impact on the successful implementation of the national development thrust pursued by whatever government of the day exists. In particular, the provision of professional, efficient public service, people with competent, motivated, impartial public officers working in a system dedicated to serving the public interest. The ability of the PSC to deliver on this mandate crucially depends on the abilities and capacities resident in its Secretariat, the SCD. In this regard, the PSC has vital interest in actively supports the institutional strengthening initiatives undertaken by the SCD. We wish particularly to note the vital final report on institutional strengthening of the SCD, Beloit, November 2015, which provided wide-ranging recommendations embracing governance, policy, legislation, human resource management, process development, etc. These ideas and proposals seem to be at one with the national institutional transformation agenda that exists for public sector reform. The PSC espouses a vision of an SCD as an organization fit for purpose, a center of excellence mirroring the attributes we seek to instill in the wider public service. In light of the foregoing, the PSC's strategic framework and roadmap is inevitably and inextricably coupled with that of the SCD. This strategic framing establishes the rationale for forging alliances with ministries, departments, and agencies, all of which engage in the delivery of human resource management services to the public sector. But it also identifies the need for an integrated approach to human resource management across the public service. Our current focus over the next 6 years reside in decision-making and transparency with the very focused use of data, the establishment of a roadmap for institutional reform and the strengthening associated therewith, the determination of competency models for increasing efficiency and meritocracy in the public service, and strengthening strategic alliances. In this regard, the PSC has approved a strategic remit in 2021, linking its constitutional mandate very directly to the operations of the SCD. And in collaboration with the SCD, it has established 3 monitoring oversight committees comprising commission members of the PSC and SCD management to oversee progress on its intended objectives and initiatives, and as a mechanism for the Commission and its membership to provide guidance and assistance to the SCD. I trust in these opening remarks the linkage between the SCD and the PSC and the involvement and concern of the PSC in the strengthening initiatives are well understood. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ruther. And it is indeed a pleasure to have you present with us, because as you mentioned, the delay was actually at a meeting this month was actually to have your esteemed present here, because you and your team would have had, you have a cadre of persons there in your Public Service Commission who may be able to push forward recommendations that may be able to give a better service to the population. And I'm glad you mentioned that you're highly dependent on the, your colleagues in the Service Commission Department for your efficiency and your efficient running. So I thank you for that introduction. At this stage, Mr. Corey Harrison, the Director of Personal Administration, acting, could you please give us a brief opening remark?
Chairman and members of the Joint Select Committee, I thank you for this opportunity to report on the institutional strengthening initiatives of the Service Commission's Department. As intimated by the Chairman, the DP is the principal advisor to the 4 commissions, and the SCD is the administrative secretariat to the commissions. The institutional strengthening report provided a framework for the SCD to modify and strengthen the areas, specifically of people, process, and technology. However, the initiative sounding those areas required support. Therefore, the SCD, through its own expertise, did its best and I must admit did a remarkable job so far. COVID-19 and limited available resources diverted our trajectory and created opportunities for innovation. The government's COVID-19 roadmap to recovery and Vision 20 played a pivotal role in our strategy. The end result to date has been incremental improvements for the operations of the SCD as the Secretariat for the 4 commissions. We would, however, require further resources to effectively make the changes that are required. I thank you and I anticipate the committee's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And at this stage, I would like to remind persons out there that this public inquiry, the objectives are really one, to examine and assess the administrative and operational changes that have been implemented at the Service Commissions Department through the past 3 years, and to evaluate the impact of these administrative and operational changes on the ability of the Service Commissions to execute their responsibilities, and to obtain insights into the plans and proposal aims at further improving the institutional capacity of the Service Commissions Department, and to examine the factors and conditions that are hindering the successful implementation of organizational transformation measures at the Service Commission Department. So it's really here to see if we can somehow get that improvement to the public, because the public are the ones who are day-to-day facing with the inefficiencies that may exist. And if we, in this capacity, can lay it all out and give the constructive criticism sometimes to say how we think we may want to go, what direction, what are the deficiencies, and see if we can get this forward. So I have to remind committee members and officials to direct their questions and concerns through the chair, and to remind members and officials, kindly activate the microphone on their devices when they are acknowledged by the chair, and to turn it off when they have concluded their contribution. Yeah. So at this stage, I just want to give a brief summary to the listening and viewing audience. From the inception, the commissions were destined to have a role of having that sort of independence in the Constitution, where you would have had the government would have had the service commissions there to function in an impartial way, where no one could run to the conclusion that the government was really interfering into the choice of persons in the public service. So it was really a historical aspect, not just in our Constitution, to insulate the public service from any sort of governmental influence. And this was seen in other constitutions right through in Bangladesh, South Africa, and it still runs so in the United Kingdom's running of their things, their whole scenarios of the commissions. But I must say that for the viewing public out there and the listening audience, we have to appreciate the fact that there are the commissions that are highly dependent on the Service Commission Department to provide them with their groundwork, to give them that ability to function in terms of making appointments, in terms of disciplinary actions. And as mentioned by the chair of the Public Service Commission, they are highly dependent on a proper running of the Service Commission Department. So as we proceed, we have to appreciate that the members of the public sometimes would have their concerns. Recently, the Prime Minister voiced concern where he stated that he may rather hire out the top positions in the public service, contract workers to come in with the expertise. And also recently there was a question in the Senate where an independent Senator Vera had voiced his a matter where he actually tried to raise an issue where there were deficiencies. And he raised a motion where he actually said that there would have been, deficiencies within these services. And he, actually in his motion, he tabled the fact that, should we now call on the government to review the Trinidad and Tobago Constitution and the enshrined service commissions and to table in Parliament within a reasonable time a clear plan for the update of the Constitution and reform of the commissions. So clearly, it seems that the commissions are under some sort of criticism from persons out there, some sort of a need for improvement. And we are hoping today that we can get that improvement. Because you see, it's highly dependent on what we do today that may determine the success of the commissions later on, or the availability of the commission to really get its mandate from the Constitution and providing a free, independent, assessment of the disciplinary action, of the promotion, of the running of the civil service. So it's a very, very important role these commissions have to play. And our inquiry serves to look at not just the Public Service Commission, but later on the Police Service Commission and the Teaching Service Commission. So at this stage today, I would like to start the ball rolling by a question to probably the Chair of the Public Service Commission in terms of the recent statement by the Prime Minister that there might be a need to look for contract workers. Now, I understand in the United States system, it's mainly that. So when a regime comes in, it hires its own people and they leave. There's also the fact that in the Canadian system, it's like that, but they more have independent persons hiring out these contract workers. And sometimes they are kept on when there's a change of regime. And, so there are different situations where it occurs. In the UK, they still, very well hold on to the issue that the public service should guard against any sort of politicization of the public service. And even as far as recently, Tony Blair had his problems there with the head of the public service, where there was a major fallout where he wanted to bring in two persons. So from your opinion, the fact, Chair of the Public Service Commission, the need to put in contract workers, do you think that's something that could, it's a good idea? Could it be factored in? What is your view on that point? Because you see, if we have a fully functioning system in place, there may not be a need to try to reach out for expert guidance. So could you give me your views on that, please?
I've been a public servant myself for many years prior to this incarnation. I've also been an international public servant. But coming back to the specifics of Trinidad and Tobago, it's not my view that one specific particular intervention is the requirement of the day. It may make a contribution, yes, but if everything else remains the same, I think that we would be no better off. My view is that there are things that are required to be done, and there are things that can be done even without the need for any constitutional change. That's a fact. So that the one-point introduction at the level of permanent secretary of individuals who may or may not have done well in the private sector is no panacea for dealing with the issue of the transformation of the public service of Trinidad and Tobago. We need to take a much more informed, holistic view of the matter. The crisis lies in the fact, in my view, having been a public servant for 30 years and have been involved with public sector reform from the very early beginnings, is that everyone looks for solutions tomorrow. And there is not a clear understanding that you have to commit to public service reform over the long haul, with clearly identified roadmap and clearly identified milestones to achieve over time. Public service reform, public service transformation cannot be switched on and off as a tap, neither could it be solved by one-point interventions. So yes, there may be in specific instances where the introduction of individuals in specific instances out of the private sector may make a contribution. But if we are serious about public sector reform and transformation, we have to be committed across the political lifeline of individual governments to a program over a 15 to 20-year period, clearly defined roadmap, and commit to that. And that takes, in my view, serious discussions at the parliamentary political level, quite apart from what you do specifically at the public service bureaucratic level.
Yeah, but Commissioner, as you have a very impressive track record of service, of being in the trenches, as it were, and now you're in a different position. You're in an independent role where you may have to defend the public service from what people may look at in the UK system as, attempt to bring in outsiders, which may somehow the public, the permanent secretaries may feel a bit, that they are not worthy of it. Now, I see the need for the ministers sometimes to bring in that expert advice. And you as the chair there, may have to give your views and your reports how we can probably make such a system work within the needs where the ministers and prime ministers will say, yes, we need expert advice as occurs in the United States system. With somehow having that advice, with also having your independence of your public servant. So would you be given that in any sort of your report, an annual report of what you think may be necessary to help this situation?
Well, in the first instance, the route to permanent secretary as currently, we can only operate with the rules that currently exist. The route to permanent secretary is via the Office of Deputy Permanent Secretary. And at the level of Deputy Permanent Secretary, there is a mechanism assessment center that is applied. And in that process, individuals outside of the public service are enabled to apply to be considered for permanent secretaries, for Deputy Permanent Secretary, which is the entry point for the permanent secretary. So in fact, there is a measure which reaches out to a wider cadre of recruitment than the public service itself, and at the level of the Deputy Permanent Secretary.
So therefore, it's really, I think, to get expert advice or to get expertise in the system, what I'm getting at is really the Deputy Permanent Secretaries there, the hiring of them, the getting them in those positions would highly be something that, would actually help the proper running of the system. And so I want to question you, for that running of the hiring practices of the Deputy Permanent Secretaries, are you somehow involved in consultancy services? I think I saw somewhere to hire a consultant to help or assist in that mechanism to hire
With respect, the assessment exercise is undertaken with the assistance of experts, consultants who are hired, yes.
Because part of the delay is really when you see a lot of persons acting. And even when we got the introductions this morning, we heard a lot of persons are in the acting position. So I'm thinking, we may have to reach a stage where persons are somehow actually have their positions, they know they have that responsibility. So probably the expediting of this, performances and actually getting persons hired permanently is something that may have to be looked at.
May I, Chairman, is this in respect of permanent secretaries specifically?
No, the deputy permanent secretaries.
Oh, okay.
The Chair, might I ask a question here? I just wanted to find out, in relation to the administrators in the Tobago House of Assembly, whom I've always assumed were at the level of deputy permanent secretaries in Trinidad. Is that true? Are they considered to be at the equivalent level in the public service?
The administrators in the various divisions of Tobago, in Tobago House of Assembly, are considered at the level of chief technical officers. The chief administrator is at the level of a permanent secretary.
Okay. So in terms of filling some of the positions of deputy permanent secretaries, is it not possible that administrators can be advanced up to that level? Because the work that administrators do in the Tobago House of Assembly is no different, in my opinion, to what a permanent secretary or deputy permanent secretary does in the public service in Trinidad. So is it not possible that another pathway is that you take an administrator and you promote them to permanent secretary, or even deputy permanent secretary, if that's what the rules and regulations state that must happen?
Let me defer to the Director of Personnel Administration on that particular technical point.
What it is I would advise is basically that because the Commission has gone to a process where we use merit, the issue of automatic promotion would not step in. Therefore, the assessment center was included, and it captures all persons who are eligible to compete for the position of Deputy Permanent Secretary. And I want to add to the point that the chairman had raised about the possibility of persons from the private sector. Regulation 15 makes provision where the Commission, Public Service Commission, advertise positions inside and outside of the public service. So therefore, persons are eligible to apply who are outside of the public service for the position of Deputy Permanent Secretary. I hope I answered your question.
Not really, because what you just indicated to me was that, you look at merit. Mm-hmm. And so the question I'm asking is, can an administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly be promoted to a permanent secretary and a deputy permanent secretary? The reason I'm saying this is because as much as we're talking about bringing in individuals from the private sector, which is all well and good, I'm just trying to figure out how wide the pool is internally, because you have all of these administrators to a certain extent. I mean, as much as I know there are rules in relation to what age public servants retire and whatnot, but the fact is that there's a large pool of individuals. If you include those that are eligible to become administrators in Tobago, the fact is that they're doing the same job as a permanent secretary or a deputy permanent secretary. And if it is that you look into that pool for promoting individuals, I mean, if you're talking about merit, I would go out on a limb and say they do have merit. They're doing the job. They're running entire divisions and departments in Tobago.
We have been utilizing the administrators Tobago for acting as Deputy Permanent Secretary.
Why acting and not appointed?
Because we have been utilizing a process of the DPS Assessment Center to appoint and promote persons in those positions. And a few administrators had applied for the position of Deputy Permanent Secretary and probably going through the process as well.
So they have applied and they're going through the process. Yes. I don't assume that process has now started. I assume that given that the Tobago House of Assembly and its administrators have been around for a while, my question to you is how many administrators over the years have been promoted to deputy PS or PS?
That is a question we would have to get back a response to you with. We'll provide that in writing.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to ask a bit, to the Service Commissions Department. In your submissions, you stated that the department has been conducting an ongoing in-house leadership development program with a view to improving internal human resource capacity among the managerial and supervisory staff. Please state the key areas of focus for the leadership development program.
Yes, Chairman. So the program was envisaged by the DPA to look at our middle management staff, those who are in supervisory positions, and we have looked at and conducted modules related to self-development, communication, coaching, mentoring, leadership as a whole.
Excuse Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm straining to listen. My volume is up on high, and it's a little difficult in hearing. I don't know if the other members are experiencing it also.
Yeah, I am as well, Chairman. I don't know if
probably if you come forward, or I don't know if if you could fix it on your end. Yeah.
I'll speak on it. Yes. You hear me now?
A bit muffled.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes. So I was saying we would have done some of the areas because it's essentially to build our internal capacity. So at the time we would have done some self-assessment, some needs analysis, and some of the areas that we have looked at would have been, as I said, coaching, mentoring, communication, leadership. Myself as a leader, we would have done some change management, and we issue of feedback and so on. So those were conducted over a period 2019, 2020, and some part of last year with that cohort. And the intention is, of course, to continue that with our middle management group. What we saw at the point in time is that we would have gotten some new officers, new persons at that role, and we saw the need internally to assist those officers as much as possible to bridge that gap that we felt was necessary for the SCD to continue its job as a department.
Chair, I would add as well, seeing that the limited resources that we got with training, we were able to partner with members of the commission who had that expertise and was able to provide that support and training for us to be able to create and establish these development programs for our leadership persons, for persons in leadership positions in the Service Commissions Department.
So two things come about there. The fact that you mentioned that you're doing a sort of, you're trying to, even though lack of resource, which seems to be a problem, but for training, you seem to have tried to, make a system work for your benefit. But then how many people have benefited from this program since its inception?
Chair, I would say about 40 of our staff members, 40.
Thank you. And what metrics have been used to evaluate the effectiveness of this program?
So annual, we have also, we do conduct our quarterly reviews, and that filter into our yearly reviews. There are also, we have productivity metrics that we use, and those were introduced in last year, and I think we would have submitted some of that in our responses. So our productivity metrics is being used to track and monitor some of what would have been implemented in late 2020 and in last year.
Ms. Lachmedial, I think you wanted to.
Yes, Chair. I have a question coming out from there, and then I wanted to focus on one of the submissions made by the Service Commissions Department. But with respect to the in-house leadership development program, which I think is very interesting, just a quick question to either the PSC or the SCD. What about leadership training across the public service? Is this something that, I know that that type of training is usually done by each department and depending on line ministries and all of that, but is there any sort of professional development program focusing on leadership for public servants? And if not, is it something that you think perhaps the PSC, aided by the Service Commissions Department, may wish to implement and to manage so that you have across the board leadership development in the public service?
Thank you, Madam Member. That is a matter of extremely grave concern for the Service Commissions Department and the PSC. We don't have the capacity or the responsibility for training, let me say, but clearly in some of the exercises that we have been engaged in, for example, particularly emerging from the assessment center for the DPSs, we've been able to identify lacunae in terms of leadership. And this is a matter we have drawn to the attention of the Ministry of Public Administration and more latterly to the PS to the Prime Minister. So we are aware, at least insofar as the discussions with the Ministry of Public Administration are concerned, that attempts are being made to improve, develop the curriculum of the Public Service Academy to take greater account of this need for leadership development training. But it is a fact that is a sore spot in terms of training and development public sector wide.
Right.
Sure.
Sorry, I just couch that question in the context that I've spent a small amount of time in the public service, but what I found is that technical people lack leadership development, and people with excellent leadership skills perhaps don't have the technical capacity, and so you need to bridge that gap somewhere. And I'm wondering if, you know, and what I found as well is that really it depends. If you have an academy and you're training people to move up into positions like DPS and PS and so on, it ought not to, or perhaps it may be a bit unfair if the training that they receive in terms of leadership training depends on where they are stationed within the service, because there are opportunities in different ministries with different types of training. So maybe something to take into consideration. I think someone would comment. Yes, sure.
Thank you very much. Sorry for intervening. But one of the things about the leadership that has to be emphasized also, because I have experienced it myself, you have to have that internal motivation for wanting to improve. And so if you are at a sufficiently high level in the system, you also have to invest in your own capacity and ability in that regard too. I just say that as an aside, not to diminish the importance of the institutional responsibility.
Yeah. A quick comment though, and again, from my experience, what I found though is that a lot of training that is available in terms of leadership and management out there, it is really skewed towards private sector and not public sector. So I, for example, I've studied management, but it was all very private sector driven and skewed in that direction as opposed to public sector. So I just made that comment, by the way. But let me move on to asking about the Service Commissions departments. You stated that you all have been seeking to fill your middle management vacancies, and I think that's commendable because I think middle management really drives a lot of activity within any department. And I wanted to find out how many vacancies have been filled and how many are still remaining at this point in time within the Service Commissions department. And do you have a time frame in mind for filling the remainder of those, what you classify as middle management positions?
We have advertised the positions within the middle management, but I could always share with the committee the exact numbers. But we have advertised, and we are hoping to fill those positions within the middle management as well as top management by the end of June, probably July.
And you can, Chair, through you, you can provide the data for us in terms of how many, let's say, have been filled within the last.
Yeah, I will provide the data.
And how many existing. Yes, thank you.
No, but Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up on my colleague's question there. But why so long, June, July? We know the importance of this particular commission, right? Because this commission affects the whole public service. So if this service commission is not properly tooled and human resource with regards to the personnel, we'll end up with a serious problem. Why June, July? Just a quick answer, please.
What it is we are doing is a holistic approach to the filling of vacancies. What it is we have currently at the public management consultant division is a restructuring of the Service Commissions department. So we don't want to fill positions when it is we plan to restructure the existing structure of the Service Commissions department. We are currently improving the structure to accommodate our future state, and we want to be able to fill the position within that future state.
Mr. Chairman, can I proceed?
Sure, member.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Member Ford, you can proceed.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I understand the answer. I'm now a member of Parliament since 2015, all right, which makes it just about 7 years. And since I came in, it has always been, what we are still hearing. We are going to hire, we are going to confer, we are going to put persons in positions. How many positions with bodies and, all the different terms that we hear. But somehow, we are not seeing the evidence. We are not seeing the benefits, the advantages as we continue, to be in a situation where we are of the opinion, quote unquote, that the public service is not operating efficiently. And I believe that it starts with the Service Commission, right? I am of the opinion that the Service Commission has to be totally managed with all the necessary persons in the various positions. And then once they are operating efficiently from a human resource function, we can then go forward to deal with the other aspects of the public service. My simple question to, again, the chairman, Mr. Rother, right? In 2017, there was a report that would have came out of cabinet and came out of the ministry in 2017. What aspect of that has the commission since implemented? All right, you all have said that. I think you all have now been there 3 years. All right, what changes have you all started? And I'm talking about changes, just as you mentioned, the issue where you make mention of the crisis. You talk about the solutions for tomorrow. It's over a long haul. It's milestone reform, futuristic, and it must be a clearly defined model. As the chairman of this particular commission, what have you all done within the last 3 years? At least, give me at least 2 or 3 points that you all have done, right? And what advantages have we seen as a result of these changes that you all have made within the last 3 years? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Done in respect of the institutional strengthening of the Service Commissions Department?
Well, again, I think we should start with the Service Commission Department to make sure that you are fully strengthened to ensure that you can then go forward in implementing to strengthen the public service. Right? I'm looking at your commission, right? What changes have you all implemented within the last 3 years, right? And the benefits that have been derived in going forward as on these changes that you all would have made in the Service Commission?
The Public Service Commission is not the responsible agency for institutional strengthening of the Service Commissions Department. The institutional strengthening report that went to Cabinet in 2017, on which Cabinet noted, was an exercise that was under the responsibility of the Ministry of Public Administration. What the Public Service Commission, of which I am currently chair at present, has done is that when we came on board and we found that report, we have used that report to establish a linkage, which I mentioned, between what the report proposed and what our commitment or mandate is, and establish a strategic remit in which we are overseeing how the activities are being implemented, such activities as could be implemented with the resources that are made available, how these are implemented, and the extent to which they are contributing to the undertaking of our mandate. But the specific responsibility for institutional strengthening of the public service, of the Service Commissions Department, is not the responsibility of the Public Service Commission. I don't know whether the director wishes to speak further to the matter.
Chair, the question directed specifically was directed to the Public Service Commission, and I could probably assist as best as I can. One of the things that the Public Service Commissions, when they came in, which was top priority, was ensuring the issues of surrounding their mandate is better done, basically, by the Service Commissions Department. So they went about the mandate of ensuring that the disciplinary process was much more efficient. They focused on the issue of meritocracy. They also focused on the review of the regulations and filling top positions. The commissions also focus on the issue of transparency as to how it is they can improve what it is they do. So in a synopsis, those are the sort of issues I would think in the past 3 years this commission has done as they entered and took over from the previous Public Service Commission.
Right, and so therefore, and what will be the main disadvantage in you all going forward? Is it funding? Is it allocation? You know what I mean? The financial resources. What is the main criteria in you all not being in a position to work with haste, with speed as you can? Because again, while all this is happening, you know, Rome is burning, but not Rome, but in this case, Port of Spain is burning. You know, so what is it that you all need in order in going forward?
Financial resources.
I have to just step away for a few minutes, Chair. With your leave, Member Ford, could I just ask one just quick follow-up question? I just want to clarify. I just need to step away for a few minutes, but I just want to clarify something. Is it that the Ministry of Public Administration, as you mentioned, should be the ones driving the process of reform and is that really, because I hear what the chairman is saying, that's not really the Service Commission. And Service Commission's remit is very clearly set out in the Constitution. So I tend to agree with that. But with respect to the restructuring of Service Commission's departments, which will ultimately lead to public sector transformation, is it the role of the ministry to drive that process? And are they the ones tasked with that responsibility, in your respectful view, Chairman, and from the Service Commission's department?
Well, member, when we came in to position, we met the institutional strengthening report, which seemed to have been dormant for about 3 years. They seemed to have been, it hadn't moved. And what we did as a commission, since it had all the elements, in my view, and in the commission's view, for institutional strengthening and for making the SCD more fit for purpose, we intimated to we have no responsibility, but we intimated to the director that he may want to use that as the mechanism for effecting change, and go back to the Ministry of Public Administration to ensure that the cabinet provides the funding for the areas that had been noted in 2017, because cabinet noted what the institutional strengthening meant, but cabinet didn't have proposals for funding these requirements. And we suggested a discussion should take place between the Service Commission's department and the ministry in that regard. Meanwhile, we used the ideas to fashion how we should strengthen the link between the Public Service Commission and the Service Commission's department to oversee what initiatives could be implemented within the limited resources that were available. And that is that's the process which we are following.
Okay, so let me just, and with all of that in mind, I want to just pin you down to, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm in court and cross-examining you, right? This is how I'm trained to ask questions, but if it could just say yes or no. But funding, taking the recommendations from that report that you have amazingly said was dormant for 3 years and driving it at a cabinet level and all of that, is that responsibility with the Ministry of Public Administration?
I would argue that would be the place for initiating action.
Right, good. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, and just one last question with regards to, as I have Mr. Rudder there with us.
Yes, Mr. Ford.
The freeze, when we talk about freeze hiring in the public service, will that affect your commission in terms of hiring also?
It affects the commission in the sense that we are minded that the individual ministries and departments have no funds to employ people. So in that regard, we await the direction whether funds are available, as people cannot be employed.
Okay. Have we been able to identify from the permanent secretaries and the heads of departments, what are some of the most critical vacant positions in the public service that are not being filled due to whether financial constraint, meritless, whatever is the operating words there? Are we able to identify the number of vacancies that we have?
That is a process that is in train currently, and more than that, as a result of discussions taken both at the level of the Service Commission's department and at the level of the Public Service Commission interfacing with permanent secretaries, we are seeking from them what are their priorities. In fact, that is in train currently.
Ms. Bonner, elaborate.
I don't know whether...
Last question, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mr. Rudder, in terms of your stewardship, again, you made it clear, right, in terms of the crisis that we could be into. And what I would suggest that based on your over 30 years of experience in the public service, and now you're wearing a hat where you could be considered, in a position to make an input, I suggest that, coming out of the end of your term, whatever proper documentation in charting the way forward for the public service, because as you said, it will take 20 to 25 years. But if we do not start, and if we don't have it documented or digitized as based on the new world that we're into, I think we would have really wasted time as not ensuring that we do something, especially during your term of office, to ensure that we utilize your knowledge and capacity. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you want to comment, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I will make a comment. I think there's a discontinuity that exists inevitably between commissions, and that contributes to it. And what I have determined for my own self, having regard to my own personal experience, is to ensure that my tenure, when it comes to, whether it's next year or whenever, that the concerns, not only that, but the achievements, the concerns, and the targets that ought to be progressed would be documented by way of handing over to whoever succeeds me.
In terms of the freeze hiring in the public service, the PSC, I think intimated that they paused initially that, you have a constitutional mandate, and that freeze could be seen as a decision that disrupted your execution of your mandate. So I understand the position you are in. You have a mandate to fill certain vacancies, but with the government's, announcements of the freeze, you don't have to go forward. If you should just continue as an independent body to try to fill these positions, not knowing what would become of it, if it's a waste of time, effort, and money. But so particularly to the Service Commission Department, I want to ask, did the government or the executive consult with the Service Commission Department before or after this announcement was made?
Good morning, Chairman. I'll answer that question. The Service Commission, there was no consultation in the process of filling vacancies. The process the Service Commission's Department takes is that we look at the state of the office. If it's vacant, if we're able to fill, if there's a recruitment process going on. We do all of that. And one of the more significant aspects of filling a vacancy is confirming that, as of 2020, is confirming that the funds are available. Now, that particular situation really relates to those entry-level positions where we will not have any bodies. And in those, we take care to ensure that funds are available, and that is through communication with the ministries. With respect to the offices where we have acting bodies, those funds, and this is based on advice from the Director of Budgets and Ministry of Finance, where there are acting bodies or where there are bodies, live bodies in the positions, the Commission would go ahead and fill. So while the quote-unquote freeze exists, which was only for a year, according to the budget statement, the Commission, as of 21, continued its mandate, taking care to ensure that those entry-level positions had funds, of course. Their due diligence ensured that we did not fill without funds. So that meant consulting with permanent secretaries. So I think the Commission continued its mandate. That particular year, from 20 to 21, we were cautious, concerned, as the Chairman expressed. But as of 21, we again continued our filling with positions that there were bodies in them.
Well, with the economic conditions, government may be forced to sometimes freeze their hiring practice. But it's good to know that we are back on track according to what you're saying. But based on the feedback from permanent secretaries and heads of departments, what are some of the most critical vacant positions in the public service that are not being filled due to any sort of financial complaints? constraints.
Actually, Chairman, the Service Commission, as part of our initiatives going forward, institutional strengthening and so on, the Commission had mandated that we seek to fill the senior positions in the public service, because the Commission felt that once the top was strengthened, the rest will follow. So that is one of the projects the Service Commissions Department is embarking on, ensuring that the top positions. In doing that, we are reaching out to permanent secretaries. The DPA has been in consultation with a few ministries. We've met and we've asked those ministries to prioritize. Give us those ministries that you are really anxious and willing to fill. Now, this is besides the offices that we have in train doing recruitment processes for. That has been successful. We've had a few ministries indicate to us which offices they require immediately. In our prioritization of those ministries that may not have answered quickly, we assess those offices. What is the national impact? What is the status? Do we have funds? We have different criteria that we look to in order to decide which one we prioritize ahead of each. But to specifically answer your question, we have been meeting, we've been having stakeholder engagements with our permanent secretaries to ensure that we meet what they want in terms of filling the offices that they require. We can provide a list of those offices, those ministries that have responded, but it is in its infancy and we are still arranging to meet a lot of the permanent secretaries.
Chairman, if I could just jump in here and ask a question with your leave, please.
Sure, member.
Yes, I want to raise an issue that's I think is a bit topical right now, and that is a real large vacancy and gap existing in the prison service. With the retirement or with the head of the Commissioner of Prisons basically proceeding on pre-retirement leave, and there being no one appointed to act in the interim. Now, it has come to the fore that, and I take what has been said by Ms. Warner about, filling key management positions, about the national impact and so on. And I want to ask about the situation that has arisen within the prison service where the head of the prison service has proceeded on leave, and what has been stated in the media, very strong statements.
Sorry. Just one clarity, please. Is it that is the Prison Service Commission that deals with this particular question that is about to be raised here?
The Public Service Commission.
The Public Service Commission. Yeah, it falls
there's no
under
Prison
the
Service Commission.
Falls under the Public Service Commission.
Yeah, there's no Prison Service Commission. This is a Public Service Commission matter. Yes. So and it has, as I was saying, it came out that there's also a vacancy for 6 positions of Senior Superintendent of Prisons, as well as, I believe, and I'm subject to correction, 3 vacancies for Deputy Commissioner of Prisons. Now, I find this situation to be a bit untenable. And in light of what is being said here about identifying key positions, national impact, this is part of our security service, for want of a better word, the management of our prisons and so on, given the situation that we are all living in and the amount of issues involving prisons. Has the Service Commission's department or the Public Service Commission really taken any immediate action to rectify this position? And again, why has it come to this, that you have so many? I am counting here basically 9 key vacancies at the top of the prison service that have not been filled for some time. And according to the Police Prisons Officer Association in their media release, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, they are saying that this situation has been in existence for some 5 years. So I'm very much concerned about that, and I would like to get some sort of information and explanation from either the Service Commissions Department or the Public Service Commission to perhaps explain to us what has been the challenge in filling these very key positions, given the point that it cannot be a secret, first to begin with, that someone was about to retire at the top of the prison service.
Let me first correct the bit of information. There is a Commissioner of Prisons in office as of now, and that Commissioner demits on the 5th of March, and by the 5th of March, there will be an acting commissioner taking over from him. So that what is in the press release, wherever, that is inaccurate information.
Sorry, Mr. Rada, are you saying he hasn't proceeded on pre-retirement leave?
I'm saying that he has not proceeded on retirement leave.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for that clarification then.
But there is an explanation, a deeper explanation to the apparent conundrum that exists at the level of the senior management in the prison service, which I will ask the DPA to deal with.
I'm sure I'll take the question. Remember, in 2017, we have been committed to filling the senior executive positions in both the prisons and fire service. We felt that, yes, great national impact. There are two offices that are critical to our society, and they needed to be filled. I'll just start just briefly with respect to fire service. We advertised those positions, and we were able to fill the top positions in the fire service within a year. The preparation took long, but we were able to complete 4 offices, sorry. We still have 1 office outstanding, but we were able to fill those vacancies. The same vigor was applied to the prison service. We attempted and started the process of doing assessments for the positions of assistant superintendent, superintendent of prisons, as well as senior superintendent of prisons. We were able to fill the positions of assistant, all their new vacancies as assistant superintendent, as well as superintendent. Unfortunately, for the Service Commissions Department, the court applied an injunction for the position of senior superintendent. We had gone through half of the assessment, and one of our candidates applied to the court for the injunctions for the reliefs that I'm sure may be public by now. So that was successful, and there's an injunction, and we have stopped that process. The final leg of that process was a competency-based interview, and having completed that, we would have filled the offices. Once we had successful candidates, we would have continued to fill the office of senior superintendent. The DPA proposed to make recommendations to fill the next position was assistant commissioner. But if this had been done, we would have continued. We have other persons on order of merit list, and we would have been able to systematically fill the offices to the top. The Commission's decision with respect to the office of deputy and commissioner is to have a more robust assessment. So that would have been looked at as well. But with the injunction, we sort of had to change gears and manage how we would fill the other positions. So we are unable right now to fill any offices or go forward with the office of senior superintendent. And there's also a court action with respect to assistant, and out of caution, the DPA advised that we hold with respect to those offices. Another key part of the story was that the Commission's policies that we do not skip ranks. So we could not move forward. We literally could not move forward to do it. But had everything gone as we had planned, by now we would have been we would have had no problem acting incumbent, and well in the way for a recruitment process, a selection process for the other ranks.
A question. A quick question. With respect to the court matter and the injunction, I think that relates to the competency-based assessment or something that you all, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, right? Before the introduction of that process, there would have been a process before that was not the subject of court action. Is it possible to use the existing process in light of the injunction to fill the vacancies that exist right now, so that you don't have that? Because I understand what you're saying about not skipping ranks, but what it means is that if there's a court action involving superintendents, then that will affect everything above that: senior superintendent, assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, or whatever the ranks are going up. So you're basically, while this matter proceeds, you're going to have almost no senior management positions being filled. unless you revert or unless you find a way to fill them. And I'm suggesting, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, is there something preventing you from using the old process to fill the positions?
So the commission recently made a decision with respect to the offices of deputy and commission, and that is still being worked out, and we could inform the committee in writing, and if the committee wishes to disclose at that time, I guess we could. So I'd rather not continue with that process until that's finalized. Yes, only senior superintendent and senior superintendent and assistant commissioner, those are the officers that are affected by the court decisions. But I wish to assure the committee that the commission has made a decision with respect to the other two. We are looking at the policies that exist that seem to be tying the hands of the commission, and we will move forward. But I just want to add also that since 2014, the commission has indicated to the prison service as well as to the Ministry of National Security that it would pursue more robust means of assessment. And this is indicative across the public service. We've done it for fire, we've done it for deputy, we have done it in the Service Commissions Department as well. And that is our mandate, that meritocracy that the DP was speaking about, is to ensure, and even the concerns of the Prime Minister, is to ensure that the best candidate is chosen for the office. And that's what we want to reflect in the prison service as well.
Well, thank you for that. And I just want to put something into perspective. I think what Member Lochvidial made mention of is really a report, I think it was yesterday's paper, editorial of the Newsday Prison Service, Who is Your Leader? And the Prison Officers Association said they were extremely dissatisfied with the sad state of affairs. It shows a great incompetence, culpability of the Commission and what is called Commission constant failure to carry out its lawful obligations in having a timely assessments and promotion to fill the vacancies. And so I heard the Commission give an explanation. I heard also that there's a court matter delay in this process. But the association said it also tried numerous times to discuss these and other issues with the Director of Personnel Administration, but with no success. And the association wants an immediate and comprehensive investigation into the deficiencies of the Commission, which is what we are trying to achieve today. And they said the Commission must explain how it allowed the leadership of the prison service to reach this awkward situation. So this is what we attempt to do today. And also they made mention, the National Security Minister, they must also explain why his ministry felt it necessary to appropriate to interfere in the sluggish operations of an independent service commission. So this was really out in the public domain. We have heard the court matters. We have heard that things are in place. So I am feeling, should we be comforted that we would not be left without a police, in the hierarchy of the service, either an acting or, so the same debacle that followed the police commissioner would not occur. So are we to be reassured from the public service commissioners that would not occur?
I wish to let the committee know that there is currently a commissioner of prisons in place, and as of March 5th, there will be an acting commissioner of prisons in place.
Sure. Mr. Chair, sorry, I think Member Lisa Morris, Julian has a hand up, but I want to ask a question after her, if it is that we're inclined that we have time.
Sure. So I'm very comforted to know that, and as you made mention, there may have been a erroneous report in the newspapers. So I think the populace would feel comfort to know that things are in place. Ms. Morris Julian, could you please ask?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just wanted to know, through you, Chairman, to the Commission, does the Commission have to wait for the ministries and the departments to request that a vacant post be filled to begin the process? This is a question from the public, and this is something I have been waiting to hear. Is it a process where it must start from the ministry's side, or can you start it? Thank you, Chairman.
Sure.
You want to answer that?
Okay. I will, good morning, member. How I'll answer that, I'll go straight to our regulations. First, before I start, we have two types of offices in the public service. We have those specific offices that occur in specific ministries. So immigration officer will only occur in Ministry of National Security. So along those lines. And then we have the generic offices that occur all over the public service, clerks, accountants, accounting assistants, and so on. Our regulations, regulation 13 to be specific, first invites permanent secretaries to inform the service commissions, and this deals particularly with all offices. We invite the permanent secretaries to indicate what vacancies exist and what are your plans to fill it. With respect to the generic offices, the service commissions department would go ahead. We do not need a recommendation. But with respect to the specific offices, the permanent secretary is responsible for signaling to us that there's a vacancy. You want it filled, who you may want it filled with, or do you want a recruitment process? So Regulation 18 allows for that process. Depending on what the permanent secretary indicates to the service commissions and the public service commission, we will proceed. If there's a recommendation to fill with probably a very suitable person, the service commissions department will research that person and ensure that that person is truly eligible and the right person to be appointed. We will do so. If it is a recruitment process, we go into the recruitment and selection process. And to specifically answer your question, there are some offices that are very specific to certain ministries that we await the direction of the permanent secretary for them to indicate what do you want for that ministry.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in here?
Thank you very much, Chairman.
No, go ahead, Member Julian. You have another question. Wait for you.
Thank you. I'm just giving way to you, sir. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much for the.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Member Julian, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this line of question is along the lines of where I wanted to jump in, because as I'm listening to everything that's taking place here today, I started to realize that what seems to be occurring is that we are more reactive than proactive in relation to filling vacancies, especially some of the higher ones. What concerned me just off the bat, along the lines of what Member Lakshmi was questioning, I'm very scared that for certain high-ranking positions in certain very important services in Trinidad and Tobago, that for whatever reason, be it that the assessment process is being questioned or whatnot, that the court allows an injunction and that process stops. The reason for this is that some of these positions need to be filled, and they were never built out or catered for that they would not be filled. Hence the reason you usually put in an acting person in that position. And if it is that a simple, court injunction can stop you moving forward with that process, then it tells me disgruntled individuals who may not have been successful to just file a court injunction and the process is stopped for whatever reason. And to me, that is very scary. But the line that I'm going down now in terms of this entire process being reactive and proactive, I'm now starting to figure out that from a service commission standpoint, for certain positions, as you indicated, just specific, it's almost as if you're waiting on the permanent secretary to sort of initiate the process. I want indicating if they have an individual who can fill a position, which you can do an assessment, or they ask you to go find somebody. So let me ask you directly now, this entire process where these vacancies are piling up in the public service, is the process of having the permanent secretary indicate to you all that the vacancy is there and they need somebody or somebody's there for the position, is that efficient? Because based on what you said, it sounds to me as though it's not efficient, because a permanent secretary is supposed to know beforehand whether a vacancy is coming up. I'm not an HR person, but in layman's terms, you would understand that if someone is approaching the age of 60, that they're going to retire from the public service as is stipulated. And you know that. You know the person's age at a particular point in time. You know when they turn in 60, and you know when that particular position is going to become vacant. And if it is that you know this, then it means that you're able to, one, in a timely fashion, receive all of the indications that you need from the ministry so that the Service Commission can begin its assessment at least 12 months before the person turns 60. I am certain, either through digitization or either through just HR practices, that the Service Commission and every single ministry in Trinidad and Tobago knows when individuals in every single position is going to retire by virtue of the fact that they are turning 60. So you're supposed to know that by December 31st, 2022, how many positions are becoming vacant by virtue of the fact that individuals are going to retire because they've turned 60 within that period of January 1st to December 31st, 2022. That then tells me that you can plan far in advance for these vacancies and begin the assessment period so that you don't end up with these types of vacancies. Tell me, can this not be made more efficient? Do you all need to do something to get these permanent secretaries to do their job?
May I take a stab at that? I have been professionally involved in planning in the public service, and you are entirely correct. The question is, what is the database upon which these decisions can or should be made? And that is number one, because from the time you enter the public service, it is known when you have to leave, if not all things are considered. So one of the problems is the nature of the database on public servants in the public service. And I suspect that this is one of the prime initiatives that the process of digitization would resolve. Because you run the risk, if you digitize the Public Service Commission and ministries are not digitized, you have two different sets of information. Which one is the information upon which you make decisions? So the member of the commission of the committee is absolutely correct in that regard. But at another level, what in fact would the initiatives that are taking place currently in respect of the application of technology would ensure that there is the same information in the Service Commission as exists in ministries, and would facilitate in a much more proactive way the Service Commission's department being able to prompt ministries when they do not by a certain time provide information in respect of certain positions. But perhaps the director may have some additional thoughts on it.
Member of the committee, I think you're absolutely right. And what it is you speak about is succession planning, not only at the level of Service Commissions Department, but at the ministries level as well. And I think we need, as a public service-wide initiative, to institute succession planning in the ministries and departments so that we could be proactive in when it is we're filling those offices. It has been.
Do you mind speaking? Sorry. Do you mind speaking a little louder, going closer to your mic? It's a bit muffled. Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. What it is I'm saying is that the member is correct, and the member speaks about succession planning in the ministries and departments. I think, and the PS Public Admin is also part of this this committee, and he should be able to provide some light on that as well, because we have been working on some sort of holistic approach to succession planning. And I think that is the only way we can be proactive when it comes to filling of offices, not when it became vacant, but at least being proactive to fill the vacancies before. So by the time somebody leaves, we have somebody coming in, but we also have somebody who is coming in based on merit and not solely on seniority.
I would like, in the submission from the Service Commission Department, right? It was stated that the Service Commission Department continues to engage permanent secretaries and the heads of heads of department to conduct regulatory reconciliations of the job positions within the establishment with a view of identifying vacancies. Further, the SED has extended its vacancy reduction project to include the development and utilization of a priority matrix. The matrix will prioritize the selection of offices for filling of vacancies. So the question I ask, what is the timeline for completing the process for identifying vacancies?
The process is ongoing. We sanitize the list, our establishment list on a regular basis. The Service Commissions Department liaises with the ministries. Notwithstanding what I said, we do follow up. We ensure that that regulation is fulfilled, which also requires us to, if there's no response, to reach out to the ministry to get a response. In terms of the list of offices, those are stated in order, and the Commission had indicated in order of range, so the most senior positions come down. We seek to fill those offices. So what the Service Commissions Department does is ensures that the offices that are not filled, that they're ready to fill. So it means pursuing proper identification of the vacancy, and that means making sure it's a valid vacancy, ensuring that if we need a recruitment process, that starts in a timely manner. And the project that we are engaged in, our timelines were, again, for the first start, June of this year. We had started a similar project, not targeting the senior officers last year. So that is on its way, and we are now concentrating on the senior positions in the public service. Chairman, I hope I've addressed the question.
So, Mr. Chair, just another question. So when we see vacancies, and I guess this is for the public as well, are you referring to the two instances where vacancy can occur? One is where there's nobody in the position at all, and therefore nobody is executing the job description of that position, or a vacancy where you have an acting person in the position, but the actual substantive position is vacant and needs to be filled. So when we're referring to vacancies here, which is it in the public service? Because I'm assuming that in the public service, depending on where the position is or where the title is, some may have nobody in the position, but it's preparing to be filled. But as you get higher up, there always needs to be somebody acting in the position, because those positions involve decision-making processes that are essential to the running of ministries. So when you're talking about vacancies here, which are you really referring to?
Okay, our project is to permanently fill vacancies. So those are the offices with it doesn't matter if there's an acting incumbent, that there's no substantive persons. That is a vacant office that has to be filled. We do fill on a temporary basis, and that is where the Commission appoints persons to act on a temporary basis to have a body in it. So I don't know if that clears it.
No, that answers the question, because that's what I thought it was. That's how I've seen it. So then it begs the question, because I keep hearing the word merit. So you have individuals who are fulfilling the duties of the acting position. Now, I am aware that the full job description sometimes isn't what is being fulfilled for various reasons, right? But the fact is that you do have a body more times than none fulfilling the majority of the duties in an acting position. Why is it that we don't have a system in place that we take these acting bodies and put them into the substantive position? And I'm asking this as a permanent secretary because I understand the limitations of the Service Commission now, but the permanent secretary is where this whole thing starts. So let me ask that of the permanent secretary, just for the Ministry of Public Administration, simply because you're the one that's here. It's not that I'm targeting you all in any specific way. But why is it that people in acting positions who are already fulfilling these duties cannot be given the substantive position, and where they don't have the full criteria, the fact that they are acting means that they can be given the opportunity to at least acquire the criteria and then be put into the substantive position?
Thank you, member, for the question. As it is, permanent secretaries can make recommendations for officers who are in acting positions to be promoted to those positions. And I think that was shared by one of the members of the Service Commissions Department before. So a permanent secretary or head of department can make such a recommendation to the Service Commissions Department. Again, there may be instances where it may be determined, whether based on performance appraisal reports or otherwise, that notwithstanding somebody is currently acting in the position, that the Ministry Department wishes the Service Commissions Department to advertise the position either within the broader public service or within the national community, advertise it to the world at large, because it may be that the incumbent, while executing some of the duties of the office, the Ministry Department may feel that in order to get the best fit or the best likely fit for the position, they may wish the Public Service Commission, the public service, to advertise beyond the public service. So again, a recommendation can be made by the PS or the head of the department to appoint, promote the incumbent who is acting, or it may feel that its purposes may be best suited to request that the position be advertised either to the wider public service or to the world at large.
Thank you.
So that is the process that we've gotten today and we've come to understand. But we still have an issue in terms of vacancies. So the question is, to the permanent secretaries, how proactive are you all in this? Because if you know that there's somebody acting in a position, and we've heard all the stories in public service, people acting for years, doing the job for years and years and years, why is it that the ministry, and I guess you can only speak for your ministry, is not as proactive? If it is, you know, the position is coming up to be vacant by virtue of age, that process isn't started in a timely fashion so that the Service Commission can do their job.
Well, again, members, you rightly said, I can only speak for my ministry. And as far as I'm aware, once we have been alerted either by the head of division in which there is an upcoming vacancy, or by our Human Resource Management Division that a vacancy is about to arise, we would normally do the necessary alerts so that either somebody could be put up to act in the position that is likely to become vacant, or to have a suitable replacement provided by the Service Commissions Department.
Good. So now we're coming right down the order list. So we're now at the HR department. What is the average amount of time that you all, as the leaders of the ministry, would normally get in relation to vacancies upcoming?
Okay, again, so our Human Resource Management Division, and again, I can only speak for myself, we have an establishment that, as one of the members said earlier, from the time somebody enters the public service, we are aware of when they will approach retirement, right? We are aware of that. And as part of that process, there is the annual preparation of pension and leave reports. It is required on an annual basis. So we do know, and I think that was clearly stated earlier, we do know, even more than a year in advance, that somebody's retirement is approaching. So as far as I am aware, sir, the necessary information is available to the HR department and is brought to the attention of the relevant parties to have the vacancies addressed. Like I said, in the first instance, the ministerial department can make internal arrangements to have acting arrangements put in place or to have the position filled from across the wider public service.
Okay, thank you. I give it to Senator Lakshmi, Mr. Chairman. If you...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your leave, please. I'm sorry, I was away for a bit, but so I'm sorry if I'm duplicating any questions here. But my first question relates to the implementation of digitalization and ICT. You mentioned pension and leave reports, which there's a lot of complaints by persons in the public service about delay in preparation of pension and leave reports, and that results in a delay later on in persons being able to get their gratuity and so on. but I want to find out something as well. Is the monitoring of vacation, how much vacation time someone has inside, when they're expected to retire, whether reports are submitted on time, is this process digitalized in any way? You made mention of some operational dashboards that have been created about attendance and discipline and all of that, and I find that that's commendable again. But this whole process of, in order to aid with the filling of vacancies, has ICT and digitalization been deployed in this area to make that process a little more effective? So that's my first question. And my second question is, with respect to recommendations and coming out of from the PS of various ministries and line ministries and so on to have vacancies filled, is there anything, and I wrote this down because I thought it was very important when the chairman of the commission said that you could only operate within the rules that currently exist. Is there any rule that allows anyone from a ministry, from PS or minister or anybody else, to make a recommendation with respect to who should be appointed to fill a position when it becomes vacant? So anybody could tackle the ICT question first if they wish.
Member, just could you confirm that you're hearing us?
I'm hearing you now, yes.
Okay. We had a major glitch. We were all disconnected from the meeting, and I got the tail end of your question. And I beg that you just repeat, please.
Sure. I just wanted to find out about the deployment of technology, ICT and digitalization with respect to monitoring retirement dates, the amount of vacation time someone will have inside, the submission of pension and leave reports, because I have information and complaints from many people in the public about delays in processing gratuity because of outstanding pension and leave reports for many years, as well as performance appraisals and things like that. Have you all deployed ICT in a way that could aid in the filling of vacancies by having a digitalized format for monitoring things like that? The same way that you said you deployed ICT for discipline and correspondence and attendance and those other things that's contained in the submission. So I just wanted to know if that same sort of approach is being taken to monitoring the filling of vacancies and the progression of people as they progress through public service in mind. I hope they didn't get this.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Ms. Bramshaw.
Thanks for that question. So what we have been embarking on is a number of digitalization initiatives, and one of them would include e-establishments. So that process is currently on its way, where it is that we would be monitoring the number of persons in a particular vacancy. In addition to that, in terms of the data being captured, etc., to ensure that we have that data readily available for consumption to monitor the pension and leave and all the other areas that you identified. Further, I mean, in terms of other initiatives, the online application as well as the virtual interview processes, which all feed into that entire HR cycle. So that instead of monitoring that data feed part of it, we do have a silo database right now that monitors that. However, a more enterprise-wide system is being established to be implemented for ESTABs.
Yeah. Do you have a time frame in mind as to when something like this would be off the ground?
Hopefully this year, in terms of. It's also linked a little bit to the EDMS project, the Electronic Document Management Project. So that initiative is happening this year, where it is that we would be monitoring or collecting that data set.
And this process, I assume, would require the digitalization of quite a large volume of paper-based records. Has that process started in terms of,
yes, it has started. I'm sorry, Miss Lachman. We are having some little technical difficulties.
I understand.
So that what's happening?
Go ahead.
Right. So what's happening is that in terms of the back end, we have, so the status of the EDMS project, let me just put it that way. We have signed off with the vendor to start that contract. It's in hope and in light that target date is in April. So that EDMS project is supposed to start in April this year to get that paper to a paperless environment. The current consultancy or that service is for 9 months, and we are in rigorous preparation for that system to be implemented in the Service Commission's department.
In addition, we have had approximately about 20,000 pieces of correspondence that was digitized already, awaiting for the consultant to come on board. So files, everything we already started the back end of the digital transformation.
Okay. And if I may further that what Mr. Harrison would have said, we also, with the backfile conversion process being undertaken with placing CPF confidential personal files, it's also what you call the day forward approach, where it is that we will be digitalizing registry in a bigger way, so that as correspondence comes into the organization, that would be placed into the system. And further, in time to come, maybe in a year, 2 years from now, we would be digitalizing the entire system, where it is ministries and departments would be able to send that correspondence or even data online to the Service Commission's department, thus furthering the entire cycle of data within the Service Commission department. So, in a nutshell, what will be happening is that ministries and departments, that same vacancy data that we've been talking about that Ms. Warner would have shared, that data can be sent to the Commission's departments on an online application or online system, and then enter into our entire data repository to then be placed into, say, the different HR functions, which includes the recruitment, digital discipline functions, etc.
Right.
Which will be the end result of the efficiency cycle with the Public Service Commission.
And right, so our hope is that all of this, which I'm sorry, it sounds it's way above my head, but I understand the concept. But I'm hoping that all of this, the end target is a more efficient system of filling vacancies. That's what we're looking at here, right? My second question, really quickly, because I know we have a lot to cover. Someone mentioned about, and I was following that it's, you ask the permanent secretaries to make recommendations or to highlight critical positions. I want to find out if there's any rule, regulation, or room for a recommendation to be made about a specific person to fill a vacancy, whether as acting or otherwise when a vacancy arises.
Right. So, as previously I explained about the specific and the generic offices. So, particularly in the specific offices, the Commission, the regulations allow that leeway for permanent secretaries to make that recommendation. Even though the recommendation may come for, and let me just answer specifically your question. Yes, the regulations allow for the permanent secretary to make a recommendation for a specific person, but there are other considerations. For example, let's say somebody recommends the appointment or the promotion of an economist one to a senior economist. Yes, the ministry may make that recommendation, but that office, the Commission must satisfy itself that no senior person who may exist in another ministry is being overlooked. So even though the PS by law can make their recommendation, they're free to make it, the research is done by the Service Commission's department to ensure that no one is disadvantaged. Where the Commission may likely consider a promotion of a specific person, it would be in a really peculiar office where we know for sure it does not exist There's no competition in any other ministry, and that person is truly the eligible person. But that also comes with certain
I understand. Does this exist within the regulations? Is this under the public service regulations, the law that says that the recommendation of a specific person could be made?
It doesn't say it clearly like that. Regulation 13 allows for the permanent secretary to make recommendations. That recommendation could come in the form of, or it could come in the form of Service Commission, please find me somebody. It could come in the form of, please advertise my position in the wider public service or the wider public, or it could come in the form of, please advertise this position within the public service. So those are the options the permanent secretary has.
Right. Do you think right, there's no specific. Do you think, or has it been the practice that our PS would recommend, say, for example, can you fill the vacancy of senior economist with Mrs. Lachmidial, who is currently the holder of X post? Is that a normal type of recommendation that you would get?
Well, it's a normal one we would get.
The Service Commissions Department has to do its due diligence. So yes, we can get the recommendation, but we have to follow due diligence in submitting for the consideration of the Public Service Commission.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Oh, Mr. Ford.
Right, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just going back to the topic of digitization, and I know I think we know the answer for it, but all these systems will be off-site one and will be backed up accordingly, just for the records?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Just for the records. Mr. Chairman, I want to go across to the Ministry of Public Administration, Mr. McKellar, Permanent Secretary. In your submission, you stated, and I quote, the PMCD received 8 draft notes for Cabinet from the Service Commissions Department that related to the restructuring and redesigning of the department for the last 3 years, right? And that's on page 1. My question is enough attention being given to central human resource agencies such as the Service Commissions Department and the CPO that have responsibilities for the entire public service to ensure that they are adequately staffed? Thanks, Mr. Pierce.
In answer to your question, sir, I would say yes. So we have been addressing the issue of the Service Commissions Department, and we are currently conducting, and in a very advanced stage, in looking at the structure of the personnel department headed by the CPO. As those 2 central HR departments that you've mentioned, we have been addressing their needs.
And then to coincide with Mr. Corey Harrison, where he made mention that hopefully by June, July, the timeline that he gave, as the PS, you can synchronize with that same timeline too?
That would be feasible.
Okay, that would be feasible, okay. Secondly, with respect to the ability of the SCD to support the work of 4 service commissions efficiently and effectively, right, as you know, the responsibilities that they hold. My question is the ministry of the view that the current model is still relevant and suitable in terms of this particular commission handling the portfolio? Is the portfolio too large? So should the responsibilities be separated? What's your take on that, Mr. Pierce?
That is a difficult question for the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Public Administration to address. As has been clearly stated, the Service Commissions Department is the secretariat for the various commissions. It may very well be a matter to be opined on by the commissions to come to some either collective decisions as to how best their secretariat should be structured or operationalized. That one may be a bit above my head, sir.
Above your pay grade, you think?
Yes, sir.
No, but in terms of the PS having the responsibility for the whole ministry, recommendations can be sought and you can advise accordingly? At least that should be able to fall in your purview.
Well, okay. So just on a point of clarification, the Director of Personnel Administration, the DPA, who is the head and accounting officer for the Service Commission's department, does not report to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Administration. Right? What the DPA may choose to do, and he has done, would be to make recommendations in terms of the structure, the staffing of the SCD, again, coming out of consultation with the respective service commissions that he supports and serves, and come to the Ministry of Public Administration with his structural staffing proposals, which we will consider and make recommendations on. Right? But I think the starting point is the service commissions, and then through to the DPA to us.
Okay. So therefore, Mr. Rudder, you can share a little input there then in terms of what you think and in terms of your experience and so on. The idea of the portfolio, efficient, capable, not enough. You all can manage. What's your opinion? Mr. Rudder? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so I think the question is the commission satisfied?
Oh, well, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Well, the same question that I would have asked the Permanent Secretary, and he said it's above his pay grade. I'm wondering, what's the opinion of the chairman of the commission? What's his take in terms of the responsibility that they now carry, and if it is if he would need support, a secretariat, a reporting officer,
okay,
like that,
I think Mr. Rudder is offline for some reason.
I will answer it. Yeah.
Oh, he's speaking, yes.
May I answer it now?
Yeah, please.
Yes, you can go ahead, proceed.
I can answer it from two perspectives. From the perspective of the Public Service Commission and from the perspective of the heads of commission, because the heads of commission do meet on matters of mutual interest, including the functioning of the SCD. I think we are agreed that having regard to the portfolio responsibilities of the SCD, and in particular the observations that had been made and the recommendations emanating from the institutional strengthening report, that there is need for restructuring of the public service of the Service Commissions Department. We have seen proposals that had been developed in consultation with PMCD in that regard, and we have shared our views, as I think some of the other service commissions have shared with the DPA. And therefore, I suspect, and I am hoping that the proposals for restructuring that would ultimately find its way or their way to cabinet will include these recommendations and proposals that have been made and seen and commented upon by the service commissions, the various service commissions. I don't know if this adequately answers the question, sir.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Chairman. Last question. And again, it's also to the Permanent Secretary, and I probably suggest that we may probably get this in writing. Again, you stated that the PMCD efforts resulted in the creation and abolition of offices, which were no longer considered necessary for the SCD in its future state, right? For the Service Commission in its future state, and that is stated on page 8 of your report and in your report to us. And the questions that I will need answered, and I presume you'll probably need to submit it in writing. What offices were abolished in this restructuring exercise? That's one. Secondly, what new departments and offices were operationalized in the streamlining the operations of the Service Commission. And thirdly, provide a brief status update on the report on the restructuring of the Service Commission Department that is currently being reviewed by your executive. Am I clear, Mr. Pias? I know the Secretary will provide it to you in writing also.
So we'll await this submission in writing, sir.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Maurice Julian, you have a question?
Chairman, member 4 just asked the question I was interested in, so I will just await for those answers in the meantime, and let me just continue to look at the issues paper. Thank you.
Thank you. So from what we gathered so far, there is a problem in terms of the financing available to the Service Commission Department to fulfill its function in terms of training, etc. So this is something that keeps coming forward. And I saw a report here that Tutor had actually given out, where from 2014 to present, the Service Commissions have continuously had their subventions from the government reduced. In 2015, they were given a grand total of 104 million to service all 5 commissions. In 2022, a budgeted figure for the commissions is approximately 72 million. So we see a reduction over time of approximately 31%. And, you know, it mentioned here that one legal matter, sometimes it could go to the Privy Council, could run into thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So therefore, in terms of the decreased financing available, I think the Permanent Secretary present today would realize that we need to have some sort of discussion in the proper financing of the Service Commission Department, and more so, you know, in terms of not just the training as mentioned, but also in terms of their legal research resources, because the Service Commission Department mentioned in their submission that to improve the quality and timely receipt of advice proffered by the SCD's legal unit, the DPA sought to acquire a robust legal search engine where legal and journalistic documents could be more accessible on an electronic platform. In this regard, due to the lack of funding, again mentioned, for this initiative, the SCD has been unable to procure the software. So I'm asking the SCD, what is the cost to procure this required software? Sorry, we're not hearing.
Approximately 20,000 US per annum.
And as an alternative solution, can the SSD collaborate with another ministry or department that already has access to legal research resources?
Well, the independence of the Service Commissions and the 4 commissions and the Service Commissions Department tend to avoid us partnering with ministries concerning legal matters, because sometimes a lot of the legal issues we get is from the ministries and department or from employees within the ministries and department. So we avoid partnering with the ministries and departments concerning that.
Quick question, which if, with your permission, Mr. Chair, is there in-house legal counsel at the Service Commissions Department, and how big is the legal department, if so?
We have approximately 9 persons as part of our unit, which includes legal research officers, senior legal advisor, and state counsels. Senior state counsels.
And these are permanent positions, not well. Somehow, I think some of those positions eventually will be contracts, or someone in the establishment.
All the positions are permanent.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Maurice Julian.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, Chairman, I have another question from the public. How often does the Public Service Commission actually meet, and given its critical role in the effective functioning of the public service, does the current meeting rate, is it sufficient? Does the Commission believe it's sufficient? And if not, are there any plans to increase the frequency of the meetings? Thank you.
Chairman. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Currently, the Public Service Commission meets once a week.
So do you think that that in terms of the commissioners, in terms of their functionality, would it be advisable to say that sometime a full-time basis, they could be compensated on either on a full-time basis or accordingly to if you have to meet more often, that you somehow that is factored into some sort of salary to you guys? Is it that somehow you would recommend that commissioners be appointed as a full-time job on a 5 to 7 year basis and compensated accordingly?
I think it's something that would lead more serious examination to make an adequate judgment on. But what we do in fact deploy to supplement our regular meeting, we do have we form part of committees that assist the SCD in terms of advice, and we also individual commissioners get involved in matters related to the institutional strengthening exercises that take place within the SCD. My own sense suggests that and this is after 2 years, that it is something that probably we need to look at in some depth.
Sure. So therefore, okay, because remember we are looking at, how do we increase the functioning of your department? And I think it's highly dependent that the DPA's office provide you with files on time, give you the necessary information. Has this recommendation been wanting at times?
Well, the want can only be determined by the demand and the inadequacy of our data and technology to reflect more clearly on what the demand is really does not permit an informed conclusion on that particular point. But I would say, based on the information that has been recently provided by the Service Commissions Department as to the state of the implementation of technology to generate data on the volume of work coming in to the Commissions Department on a daily basis now. I think within the next few months, I say by the middle of the year, we have a very good handle about the extent to which the rate at which we perform adequately addresses what comes in and can be processed and made available for the Commission to deal with. What has been happening now is the deficiencies in the data systems really does not give us a good handle on being able to conclude on that particular matter. But I am sure by mid-year, on the basis of what has happened so far, and we know is taking place in the Service Commissions Department, we'll be in a much better position to be more informed on that particular matter.
So you give me some encouragement that soon we may get an improvement in the workings of the department and knowledge, etc. But remember, most of it really is reflected in the public dismay. So in response of the committee questions on communication channels that have been established by the SCD to obtain public feedback. So from the SCD's point of view, your submission indicated that it used the following: a designated email address for public queries and service to get feedback on the e-recruit and virtual interview platform. So in October 2021. So with respect to the survey on e-recruit and virtual interview platform, how many persons participated in these surveys?
We'll have to respond in writing concerning that question.
Sure, thanks. And do you have any issues that stands out that the survey respondents complained of?
No, I think it was primarily positive. I think the issue of the internet usage was one of the concerns. Because when it is you have interviews and the bandwidth is not wide enough and the interviews continuously drop, we have issues with that. So the interviews has to be continuously be starting over.
Sure. I guess the public feedback is important to know how things are being run. And in terms of the COVID, how did the COVID really affect you in terms of, because, the business continuity plan for the SCDs, that you had was actually before the COVID-19 pandemic. But was this plan completed and was it used to guide the SCD's response to the COVID-19? Did you add on anything when the COVID-19 came on board?
Business continuity plan was not completed. However, we utilized certain units in the department, which was critical for our operations. Take, for example, the discipline, the recruitment, as well as appointments and promotions, and exams. What it is we also did was ensure that that business was able to continue. So we introduced VPNs where it is persons had access to work from home. We introduced the virtual interview platform where it is we continue to have exams. We also introduced digital means to conduct the tribunals, and we are also looking into e-exams. So we would be able to have the examinations online. So therefore, our business would be able to be maintained at all times. And the commission meetings has always been done virtually since the introduction of COVID-19.
Okay, so that's comforting. But in terms of the important document, what contributed to delay in the completion of this document?
Repeat the question.
In terms of the document, what caused or contributed to the delay in the completion of this important document?
Funding. We didn't have the funding to continue.
Mainly funded. Okay, so I guess the PS, it's on board. So I guess we realize one of the major issues there. And when do we expect this plan to be completed? Again, it depends on funding, or is it not?
It depends on funding.
Okay. Ms. Morris Julia.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. Chairman, through you. It was stated that the SCD is in the process of proposing to the Commission a methodology for merit-based approach for appointments and promotions in respects of generic civil officers. I would like to know what is the anticipated timeline for implementing this merit-based approach for appointments and promotions, because I think this will go a very long way. And 2, will the further expansion of merit-based appointments and promotions require adjustments to the civil service regulations?
I'll take the question. Thank you. we had a little error in that document. It should have been promotions only. We do have a merit-based system with respect to appointments because we do interviews and so on. In terms of those offices that do not go the way of interviews, that is the process that is the approach that we are preparing to present to the Commission, and we anticipate that will be completed by our first submission. We're looking to do that by June. June.
Sure, Chairman. So everything is on track, and by June you expect that it would be implemented, correct?
Not implemented. It's not a matter. The DP is now proposing, in light of the Commission's mandate to go merit-based selection, merit-based appointments. And just to explain, several offices, those are the more peculiar offices, we go the way of a recruitment process, a selection process, which is purely merit-based. But there are some positions that we historically appoint by seniority, clerk 1 to clerk 2, along those lines. To truly embrace the principles of merit, we are looking to see the DP and his executive. We are researching how we could apply that principle of merit to those more generic offices. So it's something that we wish to propose to the Public Service Commission for their consideration, and that proposal will come. Once the Commission agrees or amends or suggests, we will take it from there. But it is quite, it's just a proposal at this time. And that will take care of the final tier of offices to bring the Public Service Commission into, to really effect its principle of merit.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Ford?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think in terms of the Service Commission again, because I think there's the hinge. I think the Service Commission is the hinge in us going forward for the ministries and the public service to be efficient and to be effective. So in your submission on page 6, you stated, and I quote, during the work from home period, which I would presume is during the COVID period within the last 2 years, certain officers were given access to the department's VPN, and as a result, were able to conduct duties remotely, right? Again, having sensitive information, I don't know the whole aspect of who are these persons working from home. So if you could give us a little idea of some of the individuals that were working from home, in terms of their seniority, in terms of their responsibilities, because again, to be given the VPN for the department is very critical. What measures were implemented to ensure that these employees maintain confidentiality in the agreements while working from home? Shed some light, please.
Chair, just to begin, all members of the Service Commission's department swear an oath of confidentiality. So we start with that. Secondly, the issue of as to who was given the access to the VPN, we started with based on your seniority position in the organization. So we gave executive directors and gave persons who have routine day-to-day operational work. So the persons who got VPN access was persons with high level of responsibility, and we were also able to track the usage of the VPN from the IT's perspective. So we put things in place to be able to manage and secure the data, but just like paper-based data, persons have access within the department, so those data could have gone awry as well. So we made sure that we put things in place to ensure that the VPN access was secured as best as we can.
Again in your submission, in fiscal 2020 to 2021, no allocations were made, and these were financial allocations from the Ministry of Finance, I presume, for the Electronic Document Management Systems project. Could you tell us what that project is about, one? And as a result, what's the status of this project at this time? Right? What is this electronic document management systems project about? A little synopsis on what it entails.
So the electronic document management system is about changing all our people systems into a paperless environment, where it is all correspondence received from ministries and departments would come into a system that you scan those paper documents into an electronic system in registry, then it would be routed automatically to the relevant business units, including some of the core business units, recruitment, discipline, etc. Thereafter, you will be.
So this is all part of the whole digitization project that that we are now going into.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is one of the main ICT systems that we are targeting for this year to ensure that not only the Public Service Commission but other commission gets involved and it's rolled out for the entire Service Commission's department.
Okay. So, for instance,
sorry.
Right. So, okay, I think we have an idea because you would have explained it earlier.
Right.
So, I fully appreciate, just to be sure that we are on the same page. So, so in terms of the allocation you all spoke about, you all can do virement in order to ensure that, you all don't run behind in terms of ensuring that this project is given the priority that it deserves. Right? You all can fire the necessary funds in order to ensure that it continue on an ongoing basis.
No, this is a PSIP project, so you don't utilize virements for PSIP projects.
Okay, but in terms of the allocation, because you remember you said that
we have allocation in this financial year for the project
to ensure that it's up and running.
Yes.
Right. Your submission also indicated that the project will commence in the first quarter of 2022. Has the project commenced and it's progressing good, I presume?
Yes, we have been doing, as we stated earlier, we have been doing the back end part of it. We have now introduced our project manager, and we are now finalizing the contract with the consultant who would come and finalize the project, which would take approximately 9 months to finalize. But most important, I think we must have sight of this. The EDMS project is not only to digitize, it's also an information system where the Service Commission will be using data and making decisions based on data, which is critical.
Okay, I get you. Now tell me, for edification purposes as a member of parliament, because again, individuals will come to us, like just recently, in seeking employment, they would have had some communication, and I know on 1 or 2 occasions, I think I've written to the commission in order to get some feedback as to the delay, right? Because we know that there's a whole process, right, in an individual being hired through the whole public service, right? What assurances can we give to the listening public out there, to the individual who is seeking employment, to the individual who may have applied years now, and is still waiting to be interviewed, to be a teacher, is still waiting on whatever. What assurances can be given going forward? Because again, it's tough out there. I know as a member of parliament, individuals will come first. They want a recommendation to send to the Service Commission. Mr. Ford, I've been waiting on an interview 7 years now, and so on. There's a little what assurances can be given out there. I don't know which one of your members can give an answer with regards to that aspect, please.
Let me make a brief statement at the beginning, and then I would ask the director to follow up. One of the problems with the years-old application is the fact that people will just apply to the Service Commission for a job, and the application may have been acknowledged. Let me put it this way, and the person would have been so advised. And, that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been acknowledged. And the person would have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually applies, the person may have been so advised. And that builds up an explanation and an expectation. And then when the person actually appli what is the procedure that we are now following is that jobs are advertised and you apply only in respect of advertisement for jobs. The jobs are advertised when the commission makes a decision that we should advertise in relation to the demands that are required by the managers in the public service for positions of whatever it is. So this overarching approach ensures that there is a need that is to be filled imminently, as opposed to when you apply and perhaps there is a job available. But having said that, I go to the director.
What it is I would say is, what it is I would give the public assurance with is that currently the Service Commission Department, in collaboration with the other 4 commissions, and as we speak today, the Public Service Commission is strengthening its people. When it is we talk about capacity and capability, we are re-engineering our processes, where our processes would ensure that turnaround time is much more quicker and much more efficient, and we are introducing technology. We would be doing these things and ensuring that every aspect of the Commission's mandate would be done much more effective and much more efficient. And I can assure the public that is what is happening.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just wanted some clarification, sir. The delay in the implementation of the COVID-19 business continuity plan, business continuity plan. You said you needed more funding, but if it's just a plan, is it why is funding necessary for completion of a plan?
Because initially the plan was done internally, but we recognized that we needed the expertise outside of the Service Commission to effectively come up with a business continuity plan. We don't have that capacity or capabilities within the Service Commission's department to develop a business continuity plan. A robust
and funding is important, as you mentioned.
Funding is important.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the time. It's 12:48, so I'm suggesting now, that we are coming to the end of the closing, and I would like to invite Mr. Claudel McKellar to please give us some brief closing comments.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I just want to again express the Ministry's appreciation for the opportunity to respond to the questions that we were posed in writing, and also the opportunity to appear before the committee today. And again, we look forward to any subsequent questions or queries that the committee may pose to us, and assure that we will provide the necessary responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKellar. Now I'd like Mr. Corey Harrison, the Director of Personal Administration Acting, to please give some brief closing comments.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the committee for giving us this opportunity to display the initiatives that the Service Commission's Department has initiated. And we assure the committee as well as the public that improvement is imminent. Incremental improvement has already begun, and we look forward to the questions that you submitted, and we will provide our responses. I thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Winston Rother, Chairman of the Public Service Commission, could you give us some brief closing comments, please?
Thank you, Chairman and members. I just want to say that I'm excited with the way the discussions went. You've given us a lot more food for thought, and that we will incorporate in our plans as we go forward. I make one more comment, and that is, however more effective the Public Service Commission and the Service Commission Department could be, we would still have problems with respect to the transformation of the public sector to the extent that they become more productive and efficient. If there is not a more cohesive alignment and coherence across the several agencies of the public sector that are responsible for human resource management.
Thank you, sir. And as you appreciate the fact that you in that independent position chosen by Her Excellency, your recommendations also as an independent body will go a long way in letting the other entities realize what is needed. And Mr. Harrison, I think it's appreciative that you realize you are one of the main drivers of the service to the population, because your body actually serves all the commissions that are actually service providers, and even the government's whole capability in providing service is highly dependent on your department working and functioning effectively. So I thank you for your submissions here today and your participation. And again, the Permanent Secretary now, lastly, Mr. Claudel McMillan, you know, money seems to be the problem. So we have to look at that. We know that there are a lot of factors involved here that was discussed this morning. And I have to thank all of you members for being here. I have to thank all you officials from the Ministry of Public Administration, the Service Commissions Department for your contributions in today's proceedings. I have to thank the committee members who participated remotely for this virtual hearing, the staff of the Office of Parliament for your procedural and logistical support, the viewing and listening audience. And again, I hope we can achieve something for the benefit of the people. And I want to just remind members of the public, the public is advised that the committee's fourth report and inquiry into the role of NEHRS in the development of science, technology, engineering, mathematics sector of Trinidad and Tobago was recently presented in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the report can be accessed on Parliament website www.ttparliament.org. And I hope you can look at this to see what the work of this committee. And again, I want to thank the viewed and listened audience, and I now declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.